Mami, que quiero comer.
Araceli Ramos says, imagine if your child was taken from you by force in a foreign country and given to complete strangers. She says that's exactly what happened to her and her daughter Alexa when the two fled El Salvador and crossed illegally from Mexico into the United States. Araceli was deported back to El Salvador. Alexa sent to live with two foster parents and their three daughters in the U.S. state of Michigan. Their faces concealed because the family declined to participate in this report. Alexa's separation and hundreds of other migrant children like her separated from their parents over the years by both the Obama and Trump administrations were recently brought to light in an in-depth Associated Press investigation entitled Deported Parents May Lose Kids to Adoption. Alexa's separation from her mother happening in 2015 under the Obama administration when the two crossed illegally into the United States near Roma, Texas, seeking asylum. Araceli says upon being detained, U.S. border agents loaded her and Alexa into a vehicle commonly referred to by border crossers as pareras, or dog kennels.
Me detiene migración, ¿verdad? Que son los fronterizos, que son los que andan vestidos de verde. Todo parecía estar normal en esas cosas dicen una perrera.
She says she and Alexa were then locked inside a U.S. immigration detention facility that was so cold inside from air conditioning that detainees often referred to these facilities as ice boxes, where at least two young immigrant children from Central America have recently died while in the custody of U.S. immigration authorities.
Ya llegando a las hieleras, me comienzan a tratar muy mal. Me dicen que qué voy a hacer ahí. No tengo nada que hacer porque somos unos criminales y que porque dentro del país sin permiso, por eso dicen, tú eres una criminal. Y yo le digo nomás, vengo, yo no soy una criminal, yo nomás vengo a querer trabajar y vengo con problemas graves y yo le explico los problemas que llevo.
Araceli told U.S. immigration officials she went to the U.S. seeking asylum because she had regularly been beaten by Alexa's father back in El Salvador, who she believed wanted to kill her. Nevertheless, her asylum petition was denied. She and Alexa should have then been deported together back to their home country, according to current U.S. immigration law. But to her astonishment, Araceli says immigration authorities forced her to sign a waiver document to leave Alexa behind in the U.S.
Pues me separaron de ella. Me dijeron, tú no vas a volver a ver a tu hija porque tú eres una criminal. Yo les digo, ¿por qué? Si es mi hija. Y por favor, no me separen de mi hija. Yo les suplicaba, yo les lloraba, que no me suplicaran, que no me apartaran de mi hija. Que me obligó a firmar la deportación. Me barró la mano a la fuerza y me la puso en un papel. Cuando yo le dije, yo no le voy a firmar la deportación. Tú quieras o no quieras, dice, tú te vas.
Araceli was sent back to El Salvador. Alexa to the U.S. state of Michigan.
Y la mueven para Michigan a la niña. Pues ya la vida de uno le cambia la vida de uno, porque uno puede llevar... ¿Cree usted que le arrebaten algo a uno de que uno tanto quiere, verdad? Y se lo arrebaten así de repente.
Without her permission, Araceli says the U.S. government transported Alexa to the Michigan town of Grand Rapids, to an adoption agency located near the center of town behind this residential neighborhood. The agency called Bethany Christian Services, one of the nation's largest adoption agencies. Bethany declined our request for an interview, but told the Associated Press it has placed 500 immigrant children like Alexa in the temporary custody of local foster families, and that at least 9 children were ultimately adopted by U.S. families, even though that's prohibited under federal law. Bethany claiming it was determined the adopted children would be at risk if returned to their families living abroad. In Alexa's case, as seen in these photos of her taken by her foster family in Michigan, she appears happy and well cared for by her new family. Alexa seemed to be settling in quite well with her 3 new big sisters. Alexa's foster parents had originally signed a form promising they would not try to seek custody of Alexa. But that's precisely what they tried to do after becoming suspicious that Alexa would be at risk if she was returned to her mother in El Salvador. They based their concerns on charges of abuse filed against Alexa's mother back in El Salvador by Alexa's father during a custody battle for Alexa. Charges that had been dropped and Araceli's name cleared after Salvadoran authorities determined the allegations were made up. Araceli was ultimately declared a fit mother by U.S. immigration officials, social workers, and Salvadoran diplomats, and all parties agreed that Alexa, after being separated from her mother for more than a year now, should be returned to her in El Salvador. However, strongly disagreeing were Alexa's foster parents, who hired a lawyer to argue in this Michigan state court that Alexa's mother, quote, has not owned her crimes, not been rehabilitated. Araceli says she was stunned when she learned that Alexa's foster family was proceeding in court to gain legal custody of Alexa without informing her.
Lo que hicieron es suspenderme las llamadas, que yo no volviera a hablar con la niña. Yo no sabía lo que estaban planeando robarme a mi hija.
Alexa's case is ultimately an example of how dysfunctional the U.S. immigration system is, says the Michigan judge who oversaw Alexa's case, Judge Mark Fyan. Speaking out for the first time publicly about Alexa's case, Judge Fyan says he initially supported the foster parents' desire to seek guardianship or custody of Alexa.
I thought they should have the ability to take care of her as long as she was going to be here.
The problem with that, however, is that the U.S. government says it's illegal for a state court to grant a foster family custody of a child without notifying the biological parent of the child. However, Judge Fyan says it's not illegal to do so under Michigan state law.
State law is very clear that you can do a temporary guardianship order without notice to parents. And so that was done the way they're all done, without notice to parents.
So Judge Fyan allowed the petition for guardianship process to begin for the foster parents.
They were very passionate about their belief that this child had been mistreated by the biological mother and that she was in danger if she had gone back. And that may have been totally false, I don't know, but that was their concern at the time. And so I appointed them as temporary guardians pending the hearing, which would have been set about 5 or 6 weeks down the road.
Ella es mi niña bonita. Yo la extraño mucho.
In the meantime, back in El Salvador, Alexa's mother, Araceli, began publicly pressuring the foster family to return her daughter by sharing her personal pleas to the family on Facebook.
Yo soy la mamá de la niña. Ustedes no son nada de la niña, nomás la conocieron porque yo viajé con ella.
The foster family ultimately buckled to pressure from U.S. immigration officials to return Alexa to El Salvador.
They withdrew their petition because the decision in the immigration proceeding had gone against them, and the child was going to be returned to Central America, and so their petition was dismissed, and we never had the hearing.
Hola, hola.
So finally, after 15 months of separation from her mother, Alexa was finally returned to her in El Salvador.
Ya no, nunca la vamos a separar, ¿verdad? Porque nosotros los queremos mucho, ¿verdad? ¿Cuánto me quiere usted a mí?
Del cielo.
Ay, qué bonita, mi niña, también la quiero muchísimo.
Araceli says when Alexa first returned home, she spoke more English than her native Spanish and barely recognized her as her mother. And that Alexa, to this day, she says, remains confused and traumatized after what happened to her, as confirmed, she says, by child psychologists in El Salvador.
Y son cosas que no se pueden superar. Tal vez la niña, primero Dios, poco a poco.
Araceli blames the U.S. immigration system for her daughter's trauma, she says, particularly for allowing another family member of Alexa in the United States to sign over Alexa to U.S. authorities without Araceli's permission.
She is critical of the system. She says she blames the system. And part of that equation is apparently one of her family members signed to her name for permission to release Alexa to come to Michigan or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And had you known that that document was signed not by the mother but by somebody here in...
When you mentioning this right now is the first time I've ever heard of that. I'd never heard that there was somebody other than a parent who permitted it. I thought that the parent and child together tried to enter the U.S., they were apprehended, the mother was sent back, and the child was let in.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I knew about it. I have not heard this story before about the relative signing something.
In a rather damning indictment of the U.S. immigration system, Judge Fyan says many cases like Alexa's are all too common in the United States.
So you don't know who the parents are, you don't know what their position is. And I know how important family is, how those bonds between parents and kids give kids a foundation for life. And that's absolutely essential. You know, all three of my children took Spanish when they were in high school. My daughter went on to college and majored in Spanish, and now she's a doctor, and she's gone to Ecuador a couple times and actually practiced in a little hospital in Ecuador.
While Judge Fion's rural Michigan community overwhelmingly voted for and elected Donald Trump as their president, Fion is quite critical of the current U.S. administration's immigration policies, particularly, he says, concerning the thousands of Central American migrants who have been caravanning toward the United States recently. Many of them doing so, says Fion, because the process to apply for a visa for legal entry into the U.S. just takes way too much time. In some cases, it can take decades.
It takes forever to get a hearing held. It might take 20 years before your application for entry into this country is even considered. Why is that? You know, why, you know, what we do, I think, sometimes is we incentivize people coming illegally because there's no real legitimate process for them to come legally. If they were to apply and say, okay, it's going to be 6 months before someone considers my request and I'm able to go down there and present information and have a fair hearing as to whether or not I should be allowed entry, that kind of a process, I think, would encourage more people to go through it. But when people are applying, and it's years, often decades, before their request is even considered, that I think has, and I've had people tell me that because they just felt there was no possible way to enter legally, they chose to enter illegally. There are many, many good people who want to come here for the same reasons. I mean, I'm a grandchild of immigrant parents. My grandfather was born in Europe. So was my grandmother on my father's side. On my mother's side, it goes back one generation farther. So they were poor people who came here and worked as farmers and had nothing, and America held out a promise of a better life for their kids and then now for their grandkids. Okay? So why is that so different if your skin is brown? It shouldn't be.
Araceli says she is concerned for the many other immigrant families still separated in the United States.
Esa institución de Estados Unidos lo que hace es hacer falsas acusaciones a los padres y a las madres para quedarse con los hijos de uno y así pues uno vuelve a ver los hijos otra vez. Y con ellos sí estoy muy molesta, de verdad.
Araceli advises immigrant parents still separated from their children in the U.S. to seek legal help and make as much noise as possible about their situation, as she did.
Sí, verdad, para ellos, verdad, que no dejen de luchar porque hay muchas instituciones de verdad que apoyan a las familias, verdad, que tienen problemas así, verdad, no dejen de luchar, no permitan que el gobierno de Estados Unidos les quite a sus hijos porque son nuestros hijos y no tiene nada que ver con nuestros hijos.
Araceli says today she has forgiven Alexa's foster parents and wishes them well, particularly now after news that Alexa's foster mother is being treated for cancer.
No más que a ellos pues les deseo lo mejor, ¿verdad? Y que Dios los bendiga y que primero Dios, pues que Dios la va a curar porque está pasando por una enfermedad bien difícil. Y no le guardo rencor porque ella también quiere a la niña y no le guardo rencor.
Araceli says Alexa is aware that her life in El Salvador is not as nice as the one she had back in the United States, where she lived in a nicer house, among other things, with virtually no crime around her, like here in El Salvador. Alexa's mom, Araceli, is from an impoverished village called Corinto. She makes only $5 a day working as a waitress at a local restaurant and receives no help from her family.
Mi familia pues es de bajos recursos, ¿verdad? No es familia que tenga dinero como para poder vivir una vida diferente. Pues mi sueño es tener una casa donde vivir, operar a mi hijo, que es lo más importante, que eran por los sueños que yo iba a Estados Unidos. Yo no iba a robar a nadie, yo nomás quería trabajar para lograr mis sueños.
Princesa. Araceli says Alexa is no longer in contact with her father here, and that the two of them are hoping they can somehow find a way for both of them to return legally to the United States to start a new life. Alexa says she would like to keep in touch with her foster family there.
Un saludo, mamá foster y papá foster.
Aló, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás tú?
How are you?
Araceli, ¿cómo estás tú?
Buenos días.
Buenos días, good morning, and buenas noches.
Good night.
Good night.
In the meantime, here in El Salvador, mom and daughter have been inseparable.
Alexa. Feliz de estar con mi hija, ¿verdad? Que es lo más importante.
Happy their long separation is over, uncertain if they'll ever be welcome in the United States.